good morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshops. These are for Adam, Brady, Luca, and Brenna, and for all those others that like seeing an old man make sawdust. But before we get started, let's check in with my assistant.
There she is. Would you like a little treat? There's Rosie. There you go. Ah, it's great, isn't it? Let's get to work.
All right. In this episode, we are going to finish the table. We got the end caps to carve. While that's going on, I'll be finishing spraying the tabletop in my garage spray booth. So by the time we get the end caps all carved, we will be done. We'll probably just have a separate episode for the reveal. So let's get the carving. All right, last thing we got to do on the table before we apply finish to the top sections is we got to come up with a decorative cover over these where the rails go. So this is going to look like this, kind of right there. This is a little thicker than I had planned for, but I think we'll just try it like this. So what I've done is in each of the rails, I have put a mortise in there. Since that's end grain, we can't really just glue that piece on there. So we got that mortise, and then I have a shallow mortise. This is where it starts out, like that. You notice the grain, if we can get this to focus, grain's going this way. So my floating tendon's gonna have the grain going this way. So it'll glue on there really well. So it's very shallow because we have to carve the other side of it. And what I'm gonna do on these, this again is my first test piece, is I've just made a 1/16 of an inch, just barely enough that'll fit on the end part of this. We'll cut the plastic back a little bit. Since this is on the curve, this will end up being we'll have to curve the inside of it like this. If I can focus that, so that it fits fairly tight. We don't want it super tight. We want we want it to hit the screw, our adjustment screw at the end. So we'll get all of the blanks to this size, and then we can start carving. So here are my, I took some scrap, made the tenons, so we'll have to cut those off of those, and then it'll look something like this. So we'll be able to just stick that in the mortise, and then this, we'll use this as our carving piece or mount, so we can just stick it in there like that with double-sided tape and then do our carving. So we can go ahead and glue these tendons in to our blanks. We'll go ahead of time. Just got to do this recess on them all, and then we'll glue this in, and then when we actually go to install them, we can fine-tune this area out here so that it fits fairly flat. All right, I made a little prototype. I didn't spend a lot of time carving this, just get an idea what it's going to look like. My apprentice has a different opinion that it's okay. But I learned several things doing this. First we need to get it to sit flush against there or close to flush before carving it, doing it while it's flat. The first thing I realized is I was in too much of a hurry to put the tendons in. I should have waited, but they're glued in, so that's that. And gluing the paper, that was a waste of time, because I need to be able to cut these out on the bandsaw or jigsaw, coping saw, whatever, and can't do that with these tendons glued in. So I made a little template like that just slips over the thing, and so I can trace the outline. So then before I cut them out, while it's still square, we need to get them to sit flat on the posts. So we need to cut these little guys here. This is only a 1/16 of an inch recess, and the tenons are a little bit too tall, so I have to shorten the tenon, get that so that they each sit on the ends of these pretty good. Then we can cut them out. Once they're cut out, we have to work on the curve. Let's go over here. All right, you can see it comes out. We got a gap on either side, so we need to curve the back side so that those get closer. We don't have to be touching, but we need to be close. And of course, at the bottom, it's already touching at the bottom, so we need to recess that. So we need to kind of make a gentle sweep on the back, and that's going to be easier while this is still square. We can still hold on, or I'm sorry, we're going to cut it out so we know where the edges are to measure. But with the tenon in there, we can put it in the holder and work on the shaping part of it. So we got to get to work making the recess, making these all fit. Then we'll cut them all out. All right, I got them all cut out, and I took a paint scraper and scraped the paper off. It kind of fouls up the rasp when we get to that point. So the next step is to get these backs fit into their respective places. So I got one done, and I don't know how well that shows up. There's just a little bit of a gap. See it there? A little bit. That's what we want. So when it goes in, it's hitting the stop. This isn't hitting, but this brake is hitting the stop back there. Boom. So that's what we need to get. So it's a pretty, I don't know how well that shows up on there. It's just a gentle curve, and it pretty much obliterates. If I can get this out of there. A little tight. Hold on. There. So we've kind of lost our whole flat spot, but I needed that to make sure it was seated all the way. But it's just a gentle curve. So we got to fit the rest of these. Oh, first I need to file the edges. Get the marks off of those on all of these. So work. All right, we got all 6 to this stage where they're just barely out from the apron. So now, before we actually start the carving, we need to shape them with a rasp into this shape. So something like maybe a little over 1/8 of an inch around the edge, just to start out with. So got that one done, so I got 5 more to go. All right, we're ready to start on these guys. I just have just a matching. That holds it pretty well. So first we need to mark a center line. I've got 2 marks there, and I'm just using a piece of plastic to draw the line over the curve. And then I have a template here that's got 1/2 of the profile. And my apprentice is not happy. So we just mark this as a hole in these. And it's just a matter of connecting the dots. We just do that on the other side, just flip it over, mark the bottom. And connect the dots. All right, so the first step after marking everything is to define the eyes. This is an anthus leaf, and the grain in this is kind of coarse, so being careful. Normally I would just kind of scoop it out, but this is kind of gonna break up on me. And then we come back with the shallower, make it kind of a teardrop shape. When my apprentice still isn't happy, go. So we got those defined, and then that determines where our leaves are going to go. So we're going to go from this side of the teardrop and just bring that curve out and around, and this leaf is right there, and the same thing. And from this side, I'm just going to do that all the way down. All right, so we're going to take a V-tool and kind of define the edges of our, this is going to be a raised rib where the below the teardrops there. So we're just going to kind of define where those are going to go. Basically this column should be the size of the teardrop. And we'll go back and we're going to go back over this several times and make it deeper. While that shows up on the camera, come this way with it. So we'll just keep deepening those. That's a little trickier to do the back and forth with that tool. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit and just define that this way. we come back and chip that out. All right, I've deepened the grooves with the V-tool and had this side start to crack. The bottom of this is curved to fit around the apron, so these tips were hitting, so when I pushed down on this started to crack up. So I put some super glue. The crack was on the other side, but it came through a little bit. So we're gonna carve all that away. So, but I put 2 shims now, kind of more in the middle, so that we won't put pressure on those outside edges. So now we're gonna take this smaller little gouge. It's a little more maneuverable. We're going to come around on the other side of the teardrop and then make a tight turn and come up to where our leaf was. So let's just kind of go around up like that. Just going to do that on each of these. We'll refine it more as we go, but oh. It's kind of work at an odd angle. All right, so now we can take and kind of clean up some of that stuff in between. So we need to lower this whole area here. Helps to have a raking light to kind of see what you're doing. Get this out in the middle here. Watch the grain's direction, and cherry is kind of hard to decide sometimes. It goes back and forth. And we just need to go down each side here. Find those leaves. So it wants me to come the other direction. Flip that around. Let me work on it a little bit. All right, so we've kind of roughed out the leaves. I don't know how well that shows up on there. So we're going to do 2 things. One, we need to start to kind of round over these ribs. They're kind of squarish right now, so we need to take on this outside edge and just kind of round it over. You know, we have to go with the grain, right? So I can only do this side of these because the grain's going this way. I got to go downhill. And then down here, I can't still do that side because that'd be uphill. So I gotta come back at it this way and flip over and do the other sides. And the other thing I need to do is take a little wider gouge and start. That grain wants to go the other way. We want to bring those down and get them kind of smoothed out. Each one of these. This one especially, we need to come down when the grain's kind of going back this way. To break it. Anyway, you get the idea. Let me finish that all the way around. All right, we pretty well got it. I don't know how well that shows up. I know it looks a little rough, but we're gonna fix that. We want to add some ribs. So I'm gonna take the V tool and make some ribs in the leaves. You get the idea there. And we got to make some ribs in our tubes. So I'll just pick a spot here. And we just pick that out of there. So we do that on the others. Then we'll be ready to sand it. And I know for carvers that's not what you do, but I'll explain that when we get there. One more thing I forgot to do is we need to deepen those eyes, so we're going to do the same thing. Is just kind of push down with each one of these. And then come back. Deepen those a little bit since we took a lot of stuff away from them. Okay. All right, so there's the finished piece. Now we're going to sand this, and we're going to sand it pretty aggressively. And the reason for that is these are going to be flush against the apron when it's closed. But when it's open, these are going to be sticking out. And so we don't want anybody poking themselves on these things. We want to round these leaves over so there's no real sharp edges. So I'm just going to stick it in the vise, and we're going to take a sanding wheel and I'm gonna get the pencil marks off of there too. I'm really doing the edges. And same thing on the back side. Normally you would want your carving to be sharp, but in this application we want it to be rounded over pretty good. All 6 of them all done. So we're gonna put a coat of dye on that real quick, and then when that's dry, we'll put some shellac and then finally a little bit of wax. Actually, I could probably glue them on after the stain is on, and then put the shellac in the ends of the ribs. Been working on the rest of the tabletop, getting the finish on that. Again, we've did the dye already and the shellac. Been using a water-based grain filler to try to fill some of the grain holes. Mixed success with that, and just got to do a couple coats of lacquer to finish coat. All right, here are the end caps. That's a few coats of shellac. Let me get some light on there. A few coats of shellac and then some dark brown wax. That kind of gets in the crevices and makes it pop out and look a little older. So I've glued those all onto the end of the runs, and I'm working on the pie sections, rubbing out the finish, and we'll glue this to the pie section. All right, that'll do it. Next time we will have the reveal. Until then, happy sawdust.